Hey, what's up? PDX Guitar Freak here, and welcome to my third video showing you some of the patches I've created for the Line 6 Pod HD500. Now, before I get into the patches, there's a couple of important things I should mention that will help you get the most out of these patches. First, I've designed each patch so that it can be used for both rhythm and lead playing, so I'm going to show you how to use the patches in both ways. And there are certain special features that I've incorporated that are important for you to know about that I'm going to cover. For example, I might be using the expression pedal within the patch to control the amount of gain being used. So there's things like that you might miss out on if you don't watch the video. And then all of these patches can be downloaded from my custom tone page on the Line 6 website at the following address. And I'm going to repeat that website address in the notes below the video for easy reference. And in addition, down there I'm going to put the name of each patch and the time within this video that it starts, so you can easily go find the ones that you want to watch. And the last thing I want to mention is, before we get started, is for all of these patches you're about to hear, I'm using my Paul Reed Smith Custom 24 guitar, which, obviously has two humbucking pickups. However, there's a 10-position rotary knob that allows me to split the coils to get a single coil sound. Now, the majority of the clips you're going to hear, I'm just simply using the full humbucker, the full bridge humbucker pickup. However, when I do dial in a split coil, single coil sound, I'll point it out, because obviously that drastically impacts the way the patch can sound. So let's get started. First up, we have Dave's Main Tone, version 3, and I've made some pretty significant changes to this patch, which I first shared with you in my first HD500 patches video. It starts off similarly with two tread plate amps, which is Line 6's modeling of the Mesa Boogie dual rectifier head. And once again, amp A, which is on top there, is primarily in the left channel, and amp B on the bottom is primarily in the right channel. And in addition, once again, amp A has less gain than amp B, but it has a lot more mids. I've made a few other changes to the patch on the tone settings, but the most significant change is that the mids are now the difference is much bigger between the two patches. And the most significant change to the patch altogether is probably the fact that now I'm using the expression pedal to control the amount of gain that you have. When the expression pedal is in the up position, the gain in amp A is at 45 and the gain at amp B is in 55. And again, as you slowly step on the pedal, it increases the gain. If you put the gain in the down position all the way, amp A goes up to 75% and amp B goes up to 90%. It also lowers the bass and raises the treble in amp A as you step down on the pedal. My intent here was that when the pedal was in the up lower gain position, it was for rhythm playing, and when it's all the way down, it's for lead playing, but you can find some different tones in between also. For effects, once again, we have a noise gate, which is always on, and I brought back the screamer pedal, which is based on the classic Ibanez tube screamer pedal. However, I don't use it very much. I never use it for rhythm playing, but I will occasionally kick it in for lead playing when I want just a little more gain and a little more edge to the tone. You can also use the kick in the screamer when you're in the low gain setting too, so it's meant to be somewhat versatile in how you can use it. The script phase I brought back, that's the based on the classic MXR Phase 90 I like to use that occasionally for solos. And another big change to this patch is that I replaced the standard digital delay with a stereo delay. And the stereo delay effect is one that allows you to have a different delay effect in each speaker. And I've set the expression pedal up so that when it's in the fully up position, again that rhythm position, it's a subtle, quick delay effect, and when it's in the fully down position, the delay becomes a little louder and a little more dramatic. So when it's in that down position for playing leads, in the left speaker there's several quick repeats, and in the right speaker there's a few longer repeats. And Line 6 recommended doing that with the stereo delay in order to get what they call the big LA-80 solo sound. So I gave it a shot, and I liked the results, so I've been playing around with that quite a bit. And then finally we have the plate reverb for additional depth if needed. In terms of controls, foot switches, number 1 kicks in the tube screamer, number 2 kicks in the phaser, number 3 kicks in the delay, and number 4 kicks in the reverb. And as we've discussed, the expression pedal is set up so when it's in the up position, it's lower gain. If you have the delay on, it's a subtle delay, and as you step on it, it increases both the gain in the amps and it makes the delay a little more dramatic. So when I have the expression pedal all the way down, it's for lead playing. In addition to updating Dave's main tone, I've also updated the following patches, which can be found on the Custom Tone website. So if you liked those patches to begin with, you might want to check out the new versions. Clean Tweed blues patch, as the name implies, is made for blues style playing, and it starts off with for amps the 58 Fender Bassman, the bright channel of that amp, and I also created a patch that's out there called Clean Twin Blues, which is a similar patch but has the Fender Twin amp. And all of the examples you're going to hear with the Clean Tweed blues patch here, I had my guitar in the split coil mode to get a single coil sound. So first in the chain here we have a noise gate, which is always on, and we have the blue comp, which is always on, which is based on the Boss CS1 compressor sustainer, and then a Weeper wah, which is based on the old Arbiter Crybaby wah. And then the tube screamer, I put that in there in case you want to kick it in for kind of a dirty blues sound. And a lot of people don't know this, but the tube screamer was not only popular with rock and metal guitar players back in the day, but it also amongst blues guitar players such as Stevie Ray Vaughan, who was often known to use one. So here's the sound with the tube screamer kicked in. And then for ambience here we have the Tube Echo Dry, which is the Line 6 modeling of the Maestro Echoplex, the EP1, and this is the, they say dry because it's the version that tries not to color the guitar's dry signal. We also have a plate reverb, and the Echoplex, the Tube Echo, is set up for a quick slapback delay to kind of give you that retro sound, and by combining the plate reverb and the Echo in this manner, the setup, I was trying to kind of replicate the sound of being in, say, like a big room, like, so you can imagine you're in a big blues club or something playing. For foot switches. Number 1 kicks in the tube screamer, number 2 the echo, number 3 the reverb, and number 4 activates the expression pedal for the wah. Next up is one I call the Engl Metal Machine, and this is based on the head that they call the Angel F-Ball, which is based on the 2009 Engl Fireball head. And this was a amp that originally when I bought the HD500 and I was trying out all the amps, I thought that's a pretty good sounding amp, but I kind of passed it over because I started really getting into the dual rectifier, the tread plate amp, and getting a lot of mileage out of that. But when I went back and tried some of the amps that I had been neglecting, I immediately thought, wow, this is a great amp for metal style stuff. So I decided to have some fun with it here. So I have the expression pedal set up here to do a couple of things. First of all, like before, the intent is when it's in the up position, it's for rhythm playing. And as you step on it, not only does it increase the gain in the amp, it increases the mids in the amp, it lowers the bass a little bit, increases the treble a little bit, and again, the intent is when you press on it all the way, it's intended for a lead tone. For effects, we have a noise gate, which is always on, and we have a graphic EQ, which is always on, which you can see at the top of the chain there. And the graphic EQ is set up so that there's a cut in the 3 lower frequencies to take out some of the woofiness, and there's a cut in the mid 1.1K frequency. However, as you step on the expression pedal, not only does it increase the gain and the mids on the amp, it increases the 1.1K mid frequency quite a bit for an even greater mids boost when you're playing leads. Next in the chain we have what's called opto tremolo, and that's based on the tremolo unit found in early Fender amps, and I added that one in for fun. Here's that sound. Next in the chain we have the AC flanger, which is based on the classic MXR flanger, and I noticed that when you put the flanger in the chain behind the amp, it results in a boosted signal when you turn on the flanger. Now, I didn't want to turn on the flanger and have the signal boosted. I wanted the signal level to remain the same. So what I did is I added a graphic EQ right behind the flanger, that when you turn on the flanger it also turns that on, and that EQ is set up for just a general cut, so that again, as I turn on the flanger, it wouldn't result in a boost in the level. Next in the chain we have stereo delay, and that's set up almost identically to the way it was set up in the Dave's main tone patch. So again, when the expression pedal is up and the delay is on, it's a very subtle delay that you can add for rhythm playing if you want. And when it's all the way down, it's the more dramatic delay for lead playing. And then we have a plate reverb. So here's the lead sound when you have the delay, the reverb, and the flanger with its EQ on. Now, one thing that I've been experimenting with the tremolo unit is how to incorporate it into lead playing. Now, if you were to play a guitar solo with the tremolo going, it's not going to sound too great, but if you experiment with hammer-ons and pull-offs and you get the timing just right, you can get some almost keyboard swell type sounds like this. Foot switches, number 1 kicks in the tremolo, number 2 turns on the flanger with the accompanying graphic EQ that's next to it, 3 turns on the delay, 4 turns on the reverb. As the name implies, the Angus version 2 patch is one that I designed with the intent of playing AC/DC style stuff. Now, getting that real AC/DC sound is actually kind of challenging because it's not like you just turn up the gain and go for an all-out metal tone. I mean, it's quite challenging to get a good AC/DC style sound. What I've done here is I've combined two amps, and they're equally blended within both channels. On top, we have the Brit J800, which is modeled after the classic Marshall JCM 800 head, which came out at the beginning of the 80s. And then in the bottom there, you can see I've got what's called the Plexi Lead 100 Bright. And this is an amp that originally didn't come with the HD500, but it was released later in one of the firmware updates. And it's based on the classic 1959 Marshall Super Lead 100 head, which actually didn't come out until 1965. But this was a very popular amp that, for example, was used by Hendrix at Woodstock, used by tons of artists throughout the 70s. In fact, at the end of the 70s, when Van Halen's first album came out, he used a Plexi head, which of course he hot rodded the hell out of, so it didn't even sound like a Plexi anymore. But what I really like about the Plexi is, even though you have to crank it to get any sort of gain out of it, and it's a real subtle gain, I like the percussive quality of the high end for playing leads, and I wanted to couple that with sort of the growl that the JCM 800 had. The expression pedal is set up to also boost the gain as you step down on it. So here's the sound now with the higher gain. For effects, we have noise gate, which is always on, and then right after the JCM in that channel, we have a parametric EQ, which is always on, which is to help bring out some more of the high end in that amp. And then right behind the Plexi, I have a stereo delay there, which I mentioned earlier. The stereo delay is one where you can get a different delay effect in each speaker, but I set this one up for just a simple slapback type delay, although I set it up just slightly different in each speaker, but you're probably not going to notice that. And then we have a plate reverb, which I've added to both. And if you listen closely to, for example, the Back in Black AC/DC solo, you can hear that there is some reverb being used, and you can hear that there is kind of a slapback type delay effect too. So that was sort of what I was going for there. For foot switches, number 1 kicks in the delay, number 2 kicks in the reverb, and again the expression pedal is used to control the amount of gain being added. Next up, we've got one that I call the Boogie Soldano Hybrid, and I call it that because it's a combination of two different amps. On the top, primarily in the left channel, we have another tread plate amp, the Boogie amp, and then on the bottom there, primarily in the right channel, we have what they call the Solo 100 Overdrive, and that one is based on the Soldano SLO 100 head, and that's one that didn't originally come with the HD500. It was recently released as via a firmware update, and when I heard it was coming, I was really excited about it because back in the late 80s when it came out, and I was a teenager learning to play guitar, the Soldano became instantly well known for its very smooth overdrive, and it was a very expensive amp too, but it was picked up by guys like Steve Lukather, Van Halen picked one up, Eric Clapton, so some very well-known guitar players were instantly picking these amps up, so they kind of became very legendary over time. And but to be honest, I found this amp model a little too smooth in the overdrive, and that may sound funny, but I like a little more chunk in the low end. So I thought if I could combine that, the smoothness of the Soldano with the chunk of the tread plate, that's what I tried to do here. And this patch is very, very similarly set up to the Dave's main tone patch. It's almost like I just pulled out one of the tread plates, and the high gain tread plate, and replaced it with the Soldano. Expression pedal is set up so that in the up position it's intended for rhythm playing, and as you step on it, it increases the gain, it increases the high end, it lowers the bass a little bit in the Soldano, and if you step on it all the way, that's intended for lead playing. So first of all, before I play you the rhythm clip, for effects, just like the Dave's main tone patch, we've got a noise gate that's always on. I threw in the script phase, which I love for playing solos, and I put in the stereo delay again, very similar to the Dave's main tone patch, and a plate reverb. So again, the delay is set up so that when you have the expression pedal up, it's a very subtle delay for rhythm playing, and when it's down all the way, it's the much more dramatic delay for lead playing. So here is the rhythm setting of this patch when you have the expression pedal up. And then of course you heard the lead playing in the intro, and here's that lead playing again, this time with the phaser kicked in. For foot switches, foot switch 1 turns on the phase, foot switch 2 the delay, foot switch 3 the reverb, and again the expression pedal is set up so that when it's in the up position it's lower gain, more subtle delay, and when it's in the down position it's much more gain for lead and the more dramatic delay. The Stoner Plexi patch is one that I put together for fun, and I was trying to get kind of a late 60s Hendrix type sound, and it uses that Plexi super lead head. And as I mentioned earlier, this is one that doesn't produce a lot of gain. You had to crank the thing to get some distortion, and so here's the sound using my bridge humbucker pickup. And then here's the sound using the bridge pickup or the guitar in the split coil mode to try to get a single coil sound. For effects, we have noise gate, which is always on, and then the first thing we put in the chain here is what they call facial fuzz, which is their modeling of the classic fuzz face that Hendrix used to use. And here's the sound of the fuzz face in the single coil mode. The next thing we have in the chain is the Chrome Custom Wah, which is based on the classic Vox V847, and this is the modded version of that, which is essential for playing Hendrix style stuff. And then we have the U-Vibe, which is based on the classic Univibe pedal, which is, you heard it in Hendrix's Machine Gun song, Robin Trower, Bridge of Sides. It's just a really cool psychedelic effect. We have the tube echo dry again, which is that Maestro Echoplex set for pretty subtle delay. And then we have a 63 spring reverb, which again has a pretty cool retro-like sound to it. And my intent here with all the effects in this patch, other than say the parametric EQ, is to use only those types of effects that would have been around in Hendrix's time. So here's the sound. I'm putting my guitar in the split coil mode, and here's the sound of the fuzz face, the Univibe, and the echo and the reverb. For foot switches, number 1 operates the fuzz face, number 2 the Univibe, number 3 turns on the reverb and the delay, and number 4 kicks in the wah, which of course you're going to use the expression pedal for. Atomic Punk patch is obviously intended for playing the song Atomic Punk by Van Halen. Now, this is not the patch that I used in my Atomic Punk video that I put out a couple months ago. That was thrown together pretty quickly, and in retrospect, I think this sounds much better than that patch. It starts off with 2 tread plate amps, very similarly set up to my Dave's Main Tone patch, in that amp A on the top there, and it's primarily in the left channel, has lower gain but more mids than amp B. However, I'm not using the expression pedal to control the amount of gain. I'm using the same amount of gain throughout for both rhythm and lead playing when I do the song. For effects, we have a noise gate, which is always on, and then, of course, essential for this song, we have the script phase, the phase 90, which is very important, for example, for playing the intro and other sections of the song where he scrapes his palm across the strings like this. Also, always on, to get that big echoey Van Halen sound from that song in the first album, we have a digital delay, and we've got plate reverb. And then I have another delay here, which is set for a slapback echo effect, which I add during the solo. If you listen closely to the original solo, you can hear that he's got that going on. So that's, again, for the solo, you kick that one in, and that's on top of, or in addition to, the delay and reverb that are always on. For foot switches, foot switch 1 turns on and off the phaser. Foot switch 2 turns off the delay and reverb, which I intended to have on all the time with this patch. And then foot switch 3 turns on and off the delay that's set for the slapback effect. Well, there you go. Those are some of the new patches I've created for the Line 6 Pod HD500. And as I mentioned at the beginning, all these patches can be found on the Custom Tone website by Line 6 on my page. And that address I put in the body or the notes below. And if you have patches out there that you really like, that you think I'd like based on what you're hearing here, please let me know about them. The whole reason I do this is because, to be honest, when I first bought the HD500, I was disappointed in the patches that it came with. I mean, there were a few cool ones for retro sounds, but for rock sounds, I didn't think any were that exciting. So I went out there to the Line 6 website and found patches that others were making, and it gave me ideas, and I just want to share my ideas with you too. So hopefully you'll get some use out of these patches. Well, thank you again for watching and subscribing, and until next time, rock on.